We're live. UFC 270 is only a couple of days away. Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane. Deiveson Figueiredo going to try and get his title back against Brandon Moreno. It's a fantastic card. The usual suspects are here. Cage Warriors voice extraordinaire Brad Wharton is here. We'll have another special guest joining us a little bit soon. The Pod God is here. Shawnee Denny. Harry, how's everybody doing tonight? Are we looking forward to the card?
No, I think it's shite.
Before we go any further, and Sean doesn't talk shit anymore about this card, I'll talk to you about our sponsors, All Real Nutrition Bars. Head on over to eatallreal.com, enter the code word SevereMMA, get yourself 15% off. Take a look at the bar down along the bottom. I always got that wrong too, so you have to point in the opposite direction. But it's easier to point down at the bar that's going across. Head on over to eatallreal.com, enter the code word SevereMMA, and get yourself 15% off. Well, let's get on to it, lads. The main event, lots of talking points here. The first thing that I want to talk about is the multiple distractions that are going on in Francis Ngannou's life right now. There's talks of contract negotiations, old teammates. There's accusations of knockouts in training. There's talks of boxing Tyson Fury. Is it a big mistake, or Francis Ngannou has been talking about those things? Is he making a mistake and not focusing at the task in hand? And I'll go to Sean Sheehan first and get his opinion. How distracted is Francis Ngannou coming into this fight?
I don't know really. Honestly, that's not something I really pay attention to. So maybe it's better someone else to answer that question. But in general, I think that's not a good thing if that is the case. And as I say, I have no idea. I haven't seen one thing he's done in fucking 6 months. But I think it seems to be more common recently. Like I was watching back the Deiveson Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno second fight. And I'm sure we'll get to that later on. But I remember after that he was saying like, "Oh, I was distracted and I was a champion." And when people become the champion, they have more things to do and they have more, media and they have more places to go and they have more opportunities and stuff as well. I'm sure that. And when you're Francis Ngannou, he's in Jackass coming up. I saw that, and and maybe that was a long time ago, but there's always going to be that. There's as Mike Goldberg famously once said, life is tough when you're a rock star, and Francis Ngannou is a bit of a rock star now. So he is going to bring an extra added bit of pressure in the camp, I suppose. That's all gone now. He's sitting in his hotel room in Anaheim, California, just probably waiting for this, maybe doing a little bit of media, but nothing too stressful. But, fights are not won on the Thursday at 10 o'clock before him. Fights are won in the 8 or 10 weeks in the camp beforehand. And if he was distracted, if there was lots of issues, it'll be a big issue, a very big issue, I think.
Yeah. I worry a little bit, I see a different kind of Francis Ngannou than what we've seen on the come up maybe. And, maybe that is due to a little bit of confidence, a little bit of belief in himself right now. But Brad, maybe I'll go over to you and just what do you think about the task in hand for Francis Ngannou tonight, coming in against a former teammate, coming in against a very elusive heavyweight fighter? Ciryl Gane is a really, really, really good fighter, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of take the sort of opposite slant to Sean, because I kind of have been paying attention to what's been going on in terms of the behind the scenes stuff. And it's pretty crazy, and Ngannou is in a fairly unique position here, because this is the last fight on his contract. And what you normally find with UFC fighters, especially the guys who are in that upper echelon, the stars, if you will, is that when they're on the last fight of a contract and they've got a big fight coming up, they renegotiate and they get that deal done beforehand. And the Gane hasn't done that. So essentially, he's testing free agency. But here's the thing. If Francis Ngannou wins this fight, if he wins the last fight on his deal, the champions clause comes into effect. At the end of your contract, if you hold a championship title, you're bound to the UFC for 3 more fights or 12 months, whichever is shortest. Ngannou said he won't fight for what the UFC are paying him anymore. He's saying he won't fight for $500,000, $600,000, and he won't fight without the option to box. So this is a huge, huge gamble that he's taken here. If he loses, he's a free man. But if he's a free man, he's coming off a loss. Are Bellator going to match the UFC purses? Are PFL going to match the UFC purses? Probably not. Is he going to get a Tyson Fury fight coming off a knockout loss, perhaps, to Ciryl Gane? Probably not. So he's really rolling the dice on himself here. And if he does win, he's then faced with the prospect of, do I renegotiate with the UFC for less money than I want? Or do I sit on the sidelines for 12 months? And I believe he's 35 now. That would make him 36 at least before he could fight again outside the UFC. That's a crazy prospect for a guy. And, you know, I'm never one really to side with Dana White, but Dana White said he's maybe got some bad advice. And if that's the advice he's got as a 35-year-old heavyweight, I'm not sure that's the best advice. So to say that there's nothing going on behind the scenes that's going to be affecting Francis Ngannou going into this fight would be a huge misnomer for me. I think there's going to be a lot on his mind.
How much of this though is down to like him just trying to get more money out of the UFC? Like the way you get more money is, oh well, I'm going to fight Tyson Fury, I'm going to go to Bellator, I'm going to sit out. That's how you, like, historically, you know, it hasn't worked so well for John Jones, and that's it. It feels weird with Francis though. It feels like that's been going on for longer than maybe this camp or this build up, because it, like, the John Jones thing that went on so long that we felt like we got over it, but Francis didn't really get over it. And I'm not sure if that's affected his preparation or anything. Maybe it actually helped his preparation a bit. But to look at what's going forward and from that route, absolutely, it's massive. But part of me just feels like he is mad at the situation, but also using the situation to try to make his situation better, if it makes any sense. And that's the way to do it. Like, play them off all against each other. And will it work? Probably not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Sean. But there's one crucial difference here. You know, this has happened with Ken Shamrock, BJ Penn, Randy Couture, John Jones, GSP, everyone. The difference here is Francis Ngannou is repped by an agency which is a business rival of Endeavor. They're a talent, sport, actor, musician, business agency. CAA, Creative Artists Association, I think. They're a direct competitor of William Morris Endeavor. So there's also that element of they're not going to let him get away with this, you know, on an easy one. They are going to make Francis pay. They're going to make his management pay, and they're going to be sending a message, because those guys rep the Shevchenkos, they rep AJ McKee, which is kind of potentially disastrous if this relationship breaks down. You know, we all want to see AJ McKee fighting Volkanovski and those guys in the UFC, right? So we don't want that relationship to break down. So, you know, there's a lot going on behind the scenes here that perhaps hasn't been on in the past. And yeah, I think it's going to be playing a lot into this fight.
Get Harry Gold on the phone.
Kevin Lee as well, Brad, was a recent one. He got turfed out mainly because of who he had as his agent.
Do you?
Yeah, and Rory as well. Rory McDonald, he was also represented by the same guys, and he was, I guess, one of the first kind of, you know, big name UFC guys to walk away first. He went to Bellator first, I believe, and then PFL. But look, you know, if there's more and more guys getting repped by these other agencies, more power to them. But guys like Ngannou are maybe going to suffer in the interim.
I won't be signing up at CAA anytime soon anyway.
I think like this is a different kind of a situation, like Brad alluded to earlier on. You're talking about a heavyweight champion, and yes, we have seen it in the past with Randy Couture and stuff, but you know, Francis Ngannou definitely has that star power. He's one of the scariest guys getting there, and it is such a peculiar situation to find yourself in. And maybe I'll go to Harry next and just get his thoughts on the situation as a whole before we move on over to his opponent, Ciryl Gane.
I mean, I think something that the UFC is really pushing at the moment is that the necessity for stars has never been lower, right? We see more than ever, like, we know ESPN are going to pay the UFC a set amount for a schedule of bouts, right? A schedule of events, regardless of whether every single one of those has Conor McGregor on it, if one of those has the most exciting title fight that we can think of, the most exciting contender matches that we can think of. The UFC doesn't really care. The pay-per-view on top of that is a fantastic cherry to the icing of the cake, but their money is already secure, right? So the back pocket for Dana White is even tighter than it ever has been. Why would I pay Francis Ngannou $1.5 million to fight plus pay-per-view points if I don't really care about his star power, his drawing power, right? So I think the situation is a really difficult one, and it's a really difficult one for the fighters. 3, 4, 5 years ago, the whole idea was get in, get a massive name, get pay-per-view points, and you're winning. Now, the game has completely changed unless your name is Conor McGregor, right? Unless your name is possibly an Israel Adesanya. Now, Francis, if he does have pay-per-view points, obviously has a big investment in how well the pay-per-view does. But
he'll have that clause in his contract for being a champion automatically.
Absolutely.
So, I think his payday for this fight is definitely going to be better than any payday that he's ever gotten before.
All champions don't get pay-per-view points, though, as we found out a few years ago with Demetrius Johnson and others. I'm sure he is, but all of them don't.
But the point I'm making is Ngannou is obviously wanting a bigger slice of the pie, right? A better contract, a better salary, a better pay-per-view package. And Dana White's like, what the fuck do I care about pay-per-view points? Do you know what I mean? So I think go on, Brad.
I think the message was quite clear when you had the situation where Francis Ngannou dethroned Stipe, who they billed as the best heavyweight champion of all time for promotional purposes, and then Francis wanted to fight in September, and the UFC had a date in August, and Francis said no, and they said, "Well, fuck you, we'll make an interim title." That's not just a war game between two rival talent agencies. That's a message to every UFC champion that says, if you don't want to defend your belt on the date we give you, we'll just make another one. It doesn't matter. A UFC title, and I hate to say it because I've been a fan of the UFC for 20 odd years now, but a UFC title, you are the champion of the night you fight, and you're nothing more. That's all the UFC belt is at this time.
Shawnee, you're on mute there.
Who is the best UFC heavyweight of all time, Brad?
The best UFC heavyweight of all time, Randy Couture.
I was thinking you'd say that. I maybe bring out a Mark Holm or something like that. Do you know what the weirdest thing? And I'm not to go anti-Cormier again, but when they were saying Cormier would be the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time if he won that one fight against Stipe, might be the most ridiculous. And it's not just promotions. Idiot journalists were saying it as well. Like, these fucking wacko jobs. Like, what the fuck are you fucking talking about? Like, he won about 3-4 heavyweight fights in the UFC. Ridiculous, absolutely. But a problem with that as well, and you're right, Brad, that you are the only champion for the night if you win it, but not just for the UFC, for like the fans as well. At times it means less than it's ever meant. Like I was talking about Jose Aldo last time in the featherweight division. Remember that time they made Jose Aldo the champion, and the next day they made an interim championship match with Max Holloway against Anthony Pettis, I think it was. Like, at that point, the title means very little. Like, it means very little. And I decided a few years back, I remember my New Year's resolution for MMA was to care more about good fights than good titles. The problem with that is, that's fine when you get to like the actual title picture itself, because we're normally getting good fights anyway. But the problem then is, as myself and Harry have a podcast, and Ian as well, the three of us did it, the divisions are becoming so stale now, and you have lads, say like someone like Mirsad Bektic, right, whose whole career went and he never got the opportunity to be pushed towards a title. That's going to happen. Like, lads are going to go their whole career and they're not even going to get near a title, and your MMA career at the very top as a ranked fighter might only last 4 or 5 years, and it's never going to come around for you. So I think we're going completely off topic here, but anyway, Ian, steer us back.
I think that it is kind of, because it's a big narrative coming into this fight, and I think that the devaluation of UFC titles is something that's quite common right now. That comes with rematches, that comes with interim titles, and we're seeing it here with the whole contract dispute and the creation of interim title after just 3 months since Ngannou won it. But lo and behold, Gane won it. It's not his fault. He took the opportunity. He beat Derek Lewis. He's coming in here, and maybe I'll ask Sean Denny, what do you think of Ciryl Gane as a fighter, and what do you think his chances are in this fight, Sean?
So for Ciryl Gane, like, I think it's important to actually mention for both of them is that Fernand Lopez has basically taken him into the gym with no experience, and the space of a couple of years, he's turned both of them into champions. So these are not lads who've been in MMA long, so it's remarkable what he's done with them. But Gane himself, he's very risk averse. When he first came in, he wanted to prove he had a submission game, and ever since then, he's basically been doing his careful kickboxing game and just picking you off. I wonder this time, is he going to be a little bit more aggressive if Francis gets wild? Because 25 minutes is a long time to stand with Francis throwing bombs. So I wonder, is he going to use his counter punching to try and catch Ngannou coming in early on? I wonder if that is going to be the plan this time around.
We have a special
Well, lads,
guest
what's
coming
the
in.
story?
All right, Miles, we're just
Hi, Miles,
we're in the midst of talking Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane here. And I just want to ask Sean Sheehan, what do you think of Ciryl Gane's win over Derek Lewis? And I'm going to give you an interesting stat. Halfway through round 3, Derek Lewis had only thrown 3 strikes in the fight.
It's I suppose that's not really surprising, is it? Like the way Gane fights, I watched a few of his fights today as we came in talking about this, and like I described him earlier on in a video I did this week as like a risk averse fighter, and that's really what he is. And I think the fact he's just so smooth and so fast and so technically good is a massive thing at heavyweight, because if you're not able to hit him at heavyweight and you're only throwing a certain amount of shots, that amount of shots is going to be less and less and less. Like, let's say Dominic Cruz is the one I kind of compared him to at bantamweight. If in a normal bantamweight fight, I don't know what the amount of punches are. Let's say they land 50 punches a round. If you're fighting Dominic Cruz and you can't even hit him, you're going to be only throwing maybe 40 punches and landing 20 punches or whatever. Whether it's at heavyweight and they're only throwing 20 punches around, and you can't land on someone like Gane, it's only going to be 2 or 3 punches around that you're landing with, and maybe only like 10 you're throwing. He lulls you into this game where you can just do nothing, and he's so good at it. We've never seen anyone like it before, and I think, like, I genuinely think he is the next level of heavyweight MMA. I think he's that good. I think he's absolutely fantastic, and it doesn't surprise me that it doesn't surprise me that he doesn't get hit, but it doesn't surprise me that people are not throwing shots at him, because like, I'm sure Miles will tell you there, as the only lad who's thrown down here, if you're fighting a guy, and I'm sure maybe in training or in a fight and stuff, and you can't hit him, it's very hard to like throw those punches and keep throwing them and be confident throwing those punches, because like, I can't, what's the point throwing this fucking punch? I'm going to miss it anyway. Like, and that's what Gane does to you, I think.
Yeah, it kind of takes your confidence away. And Miles, I'm curious to ask you this question, because a big talking point coming into this fight is the teammate versus teammate, and the former teammate versus former teammate. And, you know, you had a similar enough experience, I guess, when you went in and fought Peter Queally, having had some experience training with him in the past and stuff like that. How much of a factor does it play into your preparations when you kind of know a fighter a little bit better, that you maybe have sparred him before or you moved around with him before? Does it play a major factor? It might for you, but maybe not for another body. But I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Can you hear me okay, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely plays a factor in the fight for sure. You know, there's something there. I think there's a mental hurdle that you need to get over in regards to, and especially at a fight of this magnitude, it's a different situation as well, I suppose, in the sense there was a lot of media with myself and Peter for that fight, but this is like a big fight for France and UFC, and you know, it's unifying the titles together. So I do feel like that there's a mental preparation that has to be done for that. There has to be a real, I feel like doing some actual mental training is really important for something like that, because it's a particular situation. It doesn't happen that often. It's not the norm, you know, and something that isn't the norm needs to be kind of dealt with externally to a usual training camp. You know, it can't just be put to one side and kind of go, it won't matter, it'll be okay. You know, I think definitely kind of, you know, doing normal things like, or things like journaling or even meditating on it and letting kind of your emotions get over it a little bit and not paying too much attention to the media and stuff like that. I think that those types of practices play a factor, but that's just for me, you know. I feel like I'm really on board with what Sean was saying there about Gane. I think that he's the future of the heavyweight division, really. Like, you know, he's He's super athletic. He seems to me kind of like almost like a George St. Pierre-esque kind of character, where I think if he jumped into any sport, he'd do quite well. Like, you know, he's very athletic, you know, and I think Ngannou will have trouble, especially in the later rounds with that.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be for me. I'm wondering what Ciryl Gane, like, can he stay the pace for 5 rounds? What we seen in Stipe Miocic fight from Francis Ngannou was a more patient Francis Ngannou who wasn't that wild, and I'm wondering if we're going to see a fight where Ngannou isn't going to be kind of like hesitant to get off those big shots, and because if you're swinging and you're missing throughout the fight, you know that's going to tire you out as well. Just maybe go to Harry for a second and see, if you're Francis Ngannou, Harry, and you're coming into this fight, what is your game plan?
Pressure. I think we saw and have seen, you know, Jairzinho, and this is a terrible example, but go with me for a sec. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a fantastically decorated kickboxer. Heavyweight kickboxer, drastically undersized for heavyweight MMA, but, you know, exactly, right? And Francis used zero technique and sent him to the shadow realm, right? Pushed him against the fence with that insane frame. And you could see that Jairzinho was like, oh, 1, this fella's moving really quickly. And 2, I should be able to land my counter left hook here. Neither happened, yeah? His brain just shut off immediately. Gane is a fantastic at his footwork, at his range control, at, as we've already said, making people fire those shots and missing. But I think Francis is going to combine, if I'm Francis, Jesus, can you imagine if I'm Francis? He's going to combine both of those. He's going to combine the patience from the Stipe fight. He's also going to combine knowing that he has that power. Pressure Gane. Make him fight on the back foot. Don't allow him to set the rhythm on the front foot. Don't allow him to set the footwork. Cut the cage off. Use your triangles. And then throw your shots. Because as Sean has already alluded to, it's very hard to hit a man that is as fluid with his feet as Ciryl Gane is. But I think one thing that is an interesting talking point, and I'll let somebody else talk about it because I've been dribbling on now, is one thing, maybe it was just me, but I feel like the whole collective MMA world had this massive gasp when Stipe shot that single and Francis sprawled in their second fight. I remember I was like, fuck me, he can sprawl, right? And there's been 2 years since that moment. What's Francis learned in those 2 years? What's he added under a new coach like Eric Nixick? And this isn't to say what Ciryl Gane added, but what are we going to see from Francis Ngannou that he's been building for 2 years, especially with all the motivations that have been externally brewing outside of the cage?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. And another thing that might not favour Francis Ngannou in this fight is the fact that it is in a bigger cage. A lot of his other fights, and especially the one against Stipe Miocic, was in the smaller cage. The bigger cage is definitely going to favour Ciryl Gane in this fight for movement, circling away, and it's going to make Francis Ngannou a little bit hard to press the action and cut off the cage and stuff like that. You know, Ken Allen asked the question about what are the chances that we see Gane with a ground game on Saturday night. I don't really think that there's any chance we'll see Gane with a ground game, but I would maybe ask you the question, Brad, is that might we see maybe some grappling from Francis Ngannou, a bit of level changing and try to take the fight down? You know, we've not even seen Gane compete off his back all that much, and you know, it's not something that I'd be really leaning towards, but maybe when you're fighting against someone like Gane and it's not working out for you, maybe level change and maybe trying to take the fight down might be an option for Francis Ngannou, and maybe he might be strong enough to keep the fight down. On the other end, doing that and failing is going to tire you out as well. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, Brad.
I think some of the submissions we have seen from Gane have been from the bottom, and I don't think we're going to see Francis try and take this one down as a plan B. I think we've seen improvements from Francis on the feet. You know, one of the things for me that's been a big improvement since he has switched camps is in terms of the footwork. He's stopped getting into situations where he's got his feet directly underneath his shoulders, and he's swinging from the hips. He's spreading his feet out a little bit more, getting that nice wide base, sitting down on his hips. And if you look back at the Stipe fight, he's using the jab a lot more, and he's throwing combinations. There's a great sequence in that Stipe fight where he goes double jab head, jab to the body, and then the right hand over the top, and boom, that lands. And that's the kind of stuff that he can flummox Gane with. Look, I don't think he's ever going to be a sleeker striker than Gane. I don't think he's ever going to be a more diverse striker than Gane. But if he can just get Gane to twitch once and land that big bomb, that's all Francis needs. Will he follow Gane to the ground if he knocks him down? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't see him ever getting to a point in this fight where he's like, oh, no, this isn't working. I'm going to go for a takedown. I think if Francis gets to the point where he's saying, oh, no, he's just going to start swinging from the hips.
I think that's one of the biggest questions coming into this fight, because you made a great point there, Brad, about the Stipe fight for Ngannou. But was he like that because of the takedown threat from Stipe? Like, was it all a function of Stipe taking him down for 5 rounds the last time they fought? Like, if it was, we won't see it this time and we can have a different conversation. But if it was like just a basic change in his base game and that's the way he now fights, like we've seen that with certain people. Look at Tyron Woodley. He went and he fought Wonderboy in a certain style, and then for the rest of his career he hasn't been able to get out of fighting that style. Like, will Francis go back to Francis smash, as someone said in the comments there? Like, or will he fight that more, not laid back style, but it's a smarter style, I suppose? Because if you do fight that style against Gane, it's not a smarter style, because Gane will pick you off in that game and he'll win over 5 rounds. So I'm interested to see how he can actually adjust from that and maybe go back to be a bit more agricultural than he was in that fight.
Yeah,
I guess it depends also on what Miles was saying, right? Like, if Francis is coming in here to prove a point, to say, oh no, this is what used to happen in sparring, to say, no, like, I am going to rush him, I am aggressive, I am furious with the UFC, I'm here to put a stamp on it. I mean, we've seen that in however many fights, that it just goes terribly, terribly wrong, right? So I think the mentality that Francis is going to come in here with is going to have a massive effect. We know how muscle-bound he is. Cardio is always a problem when you're that size, right? So I think the mentality factor that Miles was talking about is massive in this fight. Massive.
I was watching the embedded there today as well, and I have noticed a little bit of a change in Ngannou, or about how he's kind of talking as well. He's talking a lot about super fights with Tyson Fury, how he used to smash Gane and he accidentally knocked him out, and I think he was saying something in embedded as well about how I think it's a joke that he's the champion and stuff like that. And I think maybe he's being a little bit more egocentric, and if it would do him, it would play in his favor to kind of maybe take a step back and respect Gane's skills a little bit as well. I think that there's a little bit of that going on at the moment as well. And I don't think it'll play into his favor if things start to kind of tilt downwards and Gane starts to kind of take the momentum of the fight. It'll be like a Dustin Poirier style fight. It'll be like an avalanche. It'll start like really tipping into his favor as the fight goes on, I think, just from a mental standpoint,
100%. How do you see the fight playing out in your opinion?
I kind of think that Gane's just going to pick him apart, to be honest with you. I think it's either Ngannou's either going to knock him out in the first 1 to 3 rounds, but like first round is going to be really dangerous, second round is going to be particularly dangerous, and the third round it'll be kind of the turning of the tide, I feel, and I definitely feel like the amount of muscle and size that he has, he just has that kind of naturally against him, unfortunately, like, because it takes just more oxygen and blood flow to kind of carry a man of his size. So, and Gane doesn't seem to have that problem. He's very light in his feet. He's very athletic. I think he'd last 5 rounds pretty easy. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if I saw Gane go for a takedown. I think he might throw something wild out from left field and maybe try something like that too.
Yeah, but Brad, we'll move on from this. Let's get just a quick pick from everybody and how they think the fight is going to go. We'll go to Brad first.
Guys, look, I don't want to lower the tone, but I'm not sure if you guys have seen the picture of Ciryl Gane that was
fucking hilarious earlier.
Going around social media today. I heard his penis just entered the UFC flyweight rankings at number 7. So, the question for me is, can he even make 265 pounds packing that bad boy? And if he can, And if you can hit Ngannou with that thing, it's a first round KO for my money. That's my prediction.
Beautiful.
Be the first time it would.
You're not ever go, you're not. We're not. How do you follow that, number one? We're not going to hear better analysis than that on the build up to this one.
Commentator of the year. Commentator of the year.
You didn't get that price for nothing, folks. You didn't get that price for nothing. Harry, who's your pick for the fight? Real quick.
Gane decision.
Sean Denny.
Gane decision.
Sean Sheehan.
Yeah, I think Gane win by decision. Maybe late finish. I agree with what Miles said there as well. I always pick the more technical fighter, and when the more technical fighter doesn't get hit an awful lot against the guy whose only chance of winning is hitting you, you have to pick the technical fighter, I think.
Raw power, I'm going. Fuck the lot. He is Francis Ngannou KO. Right, we'll move on. We'll go from the
What's
big guy.
Miles' pick? What's Miles' pick?
I think Miles was probably alluding to Gane, I'd say.
Yeah, round 4 TKO, I'll go with.
Nice. We'll move from the big guys to the little guys, and we'll go to the trilogy fight in the flyweight division. Brandon Moreno is going to be defending his title against Deiveson Figueiredo. It'll be the third time these guys fought. First two fights were really good. First fight was close, controversial, points deduction kind of got the draw there. Second fight, it was more so Deiveson Figueiredo's battle with the scales that kind of done him. He looks in fantastic condition coming into this fight. And I'll go to Sean Denny first. What's your overall opinion on this fight, and how do you see it kind of playing out, Sean?
I sort of think Moreno's like sticking a squirrel in a bag. So he's going to be able to sort of make your life very uncomfortable. So for someone like Figueiredo, who struggles with weight and is very big, I think he's probably going to be too quick for him again. So I can see this being a repeat of the second fight where Moreno has a bit more of it his own way. He'll mix in his striking with his takedowns. He'll just keep the pace very high and just try and wear on that cardio. I think that's Moreno's key to victory. But look, Figueiredo's a very good fighter. If he's managed his weight properly this time, he's got the power. He's got very good submissions. And if you make the slightest slip up, he's going to finish you.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that too. And I mean, Deiveson Figueiredo is looking in fantastic shape. I've seen a picture of him on Instagram, and he hasn't looked in as good a shape in a long time, being honest, coming into a fight. You know, you can look good, you can say you're going to be doing the business, but you're not going to find out until you get in there how much that weight cut is taken from him. And he is a rather big flyweight, and I'm wondering, Harry, is it a thing for Brandon Moreno where he's going to have to kind of maybe just play it safe for a couple of rounds and bring this into the championship rounds and kind of make it his fight and grind on Deiveson Figueiredo to kind of make him tired? How do you see the fight going?
I think this really is the question, right? Figueiredo has clearly started his weight cut far, far earlier this time out, and we're going to find out very quickly how that affects his cardio and how that affects his overall gas tank in the fight. Does that mean that he can, he's gotten used to the weight a little bit more, and he's used to the training regimen, and he's understanding what it feels like to be under pressure, and understands what it's like to be fatigued at that weight for a little bit longer? I don't know. But Brandon Moreno is somebody that has cardio for days. He's a scramble machine. I think the squirrel in a bag is an absolutely fantastic description. But for me, you're right. I think if I'm Brandon Moreno, I'm trying to drag Deiveson Figueiredo as deep into the deep waters as possible and asking him if he can swim. My only fear for Moreno is the fear that I've had in the other two fights, and that's just the way that he stands. His hands are always straight up, right? His fingers are straight up. He very rarely makes a fist, and he stands very low in those knees. And that makes him, one, susceptible to leg kicks, and two, he sticks his chin out a lot, right? And if Deiveson knows he only has a couple of rounds to get this done, Brandon is a man that's more than happy to take a shot to give one. And we have seen in lots of Deiveson Figueiredo fights, not that this has happened in the first two fights, we saw Brandon Moreno have an iron chin, but an iron chin doesn't last forever, right? And if Deiveson knows he has 2 or 3 rounds, we're probably going to find out whether that chin's going to stay iron or not.
Yeah, we've seen, 8 rounds already, and yeah. I don't think, Moreno got hit with a couple of solid shots in the first fight as well as the second fight as well, and he has stood the test so far. And I'm thinking like, I think Moreno is coming into this fight with a lot more confidence and a lot more
Agreed.
belief in himself. And it's, I can only say it, and I'll say it again. I think this Deiveson Figueiredo is going to have to get it done in round 1, round 2, maybe round 3, and I think that if you're Moreno coming into this fight, you're really going to have to try your best to win one of the first 3 rounds and then take round 4 or round 5. I could see this going all the way. I could, if Deiveson Figueiredo really punctures, I can see Moreno get him out of there in the championship rounds too. I'm curious to go to you, Brad, and just your overall thoughts on this fight.
I think, you know, I know it doesn't really mean much practically, but historically, you look back at the great trilogies in the UFC, and it's very rare that you see someone lose the second fight and win the third and come out on top in those trilogies. You know, Deiveson Figueiredo, he would have won that first fight, apart from, you know, it was a real bad ball shot. I don't think it was intentional, but it was one of those that was so bad the referee had to deduct a point. So I think Figueiredo's going to have it in his head that he won that first fight, but he lost the second in a much more emphatic fashion in my mind. 34 years old is not old at all, but for a flyweight, you're going to maybe start losing a bit of speed, a little bit of reflex. You can kind of deal with that at the higher weights because you're hitting a bit harder. I just think maybe it's Brandon Moreno's time right now. I think he's going to have all the confidence in the world behind him. I think he's going to think, look, I took all this guy's best shots in the first fight. I finished him in the second fight. This is my time now. And I think Brandon Moreno's going to finish this fight early.
Nice. But Miles, how do you see this fight going? Do you see one or the other getting each other out there? Do you see this going all the way? I'm just wondering what you're thinking.
I'm along the same lines as yourself, Ian, to be honest with you. I think that Moreno would probably be winning one of the 1 to 3, and then he'll be winning rounds 4 or 5. And I could see him actually finishing the fight again, to be honest with you. You know, I do feel like he's coming in with an abundance of confidence now coming into this fight. And although I do agree that he is susceptible to leg kicks, and he does lift his chin and he kind of like waves his guard a little bit like this. So I think, you know, there is definitely a chance that he could get caught with like a wild winging hook, because, you know, there's power there, of course, to be hit with, like, you know. So I feel like that, you know, but the chances of that are slim, I feel. You know, I think he is coming in on a really good energy, and he is probably going to have improved a lot between then and now. He doesn't seem to be the type of athlete that he would have been celebrating and patting himself in the back too much. I'm sure he would be in the gym training pretty hard, and he seems to be the type of character to be like that. So I'm sure it'll be a repeat of the second fight, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. I'll go to you last, Sean, and I'll ask you the question first before you give your opinion on the fight. And is the flyweight division dependent on a Brandon Moreno win here in order to get it up and going again? Because if for some way Deiveson does connect with him and knock Brandon Moreno out, it means we're going to have to watch these guys fight for the 4th time in a row, and everybody's waiting for their title shot and they're waiting for their chance.
Go on, Sean Denny, you answer that one.
Yeah, we need Moreno to win. We just need rematches to calm down. New is better. New is always better.
I think I suppose that's a question we ask afterwards. If it is 1-1-1, I think everyone will be kind of, you know, happy to see the 4th fight, to be honest. It's one of those where there isn't... Look, there's some good fighters at a 125, the likes of Askar Askarov and Kai Kara France coming through, and others as well. I'm sure you could pull out a few. But, I'd be happy enough if this is a win for Figueiredo at the weekend to see it again. But I went back today. I know we did a bit of a podcast earlier, Ian, and I was like, I'm big on Figueiredo. I think he'll win. He's 8-1 to win by submission. I think that's a fantastic bet. And I went and I did the rewatch coming out tomorrow on Patreon. And I watched the second fight back, and I'm like, fuck. Moreno was so good in that fight. And I know I've said it, and other people have said it as well, about it's the weight cut. And I just think he beat him to the punch in every facet of that game. Like, you know, sometimes if you can't be first, be second. He couldn't be second, he couldn't be third, he couldn't be anywhere. Like, he was just beating him from pillar to post. Figueiredo would try to switch and go to southpaw. He was kicking him with the inside leg kicks. You look as well, you look at Brandon Moreno, and you think he's a bit shorter than Figueiredo. He's actually 2 inches taller than him, which I was a bit shocked to actually see today. Figueiredo just looks taller. But the way Moreno fights, he fights lower down, as Harry was saying earlier on, but that jab that he can throw is actually longer than you might expect. And against someone like Figueiredo, to have that advantage over him makes his ability to land that first shot, it takes it away a lot. Now, I think Figueiredo is going to have to be very, very, very brave. And, you know, you said earlier on about throwing one and eating one to land one. He's going to have to do that. He might have to take 3 to eat one, and that's the way he's going to win the fight. He has to win it early. He has to land these big bombs. If Moreno gets hurt, he has to finish him. Look, honestly, I think he can still do it, and I'm still going for Figueiredo just about, but this is more like believing in the past Figueiredo rather than the current Figueiredo. Like that Figueiredo could be gone, as Brad said earlier. I think it was he's 34 years of age at flyweight. That's old, and he has had the belt. And when you get to the very top, I always remember Rashad Evans saying it. He won the belt, and he dreamt his whole life of being a UFC champion. He woke up the next morning, and he's like, "Well, my life hasn't changed that much." And that can be a very tough mental thing to actually, get through. And I don't know if Figueiredo had that now. I'm not sure, but like you see it with lots of fighters. Their apex is that first UFC championship win, and then they never reach it again. And could that be the case for Figueiredo? Maybe. But I'm really excited by this fight because if Figueiredo comes and he's 100%, I think he'll win the fight. But like, how close to 100% can he be? And Moreno has improved so much from their first fight to the second fight. I'm really excited to see what he is like in this fight. But I'd say someone said about the leg kicks earlier on, I think they'll be a big thing. I think Moreno needs to land a lot of leg kicks. He needs to make him pay every time he changes stances and kick the inside of that leg. And another big thing as well, we saw last weekend with Calvin Kattar against Giga Chikadze. It was an even enough fight on the feed. He got taken down, he got up, and he looked dead. He landed a few jabs, he did well, he kept fighting, he never gave up. But that fight was over from the point he got up from that. The last fight, Figueiredo against Moreno caught him in a body lock, he took him down, and that fight was over. The second he got him on the ground, he just looked so tired. And sorry, actually, he landed on the ground a different way in the second round, and in the third round, he took him down with a body lock. And it was too easy. It was way too easy. And if it gets to that point for Figueiredo, the fight's over. So he has to end it before that, I think, and he needs to be aggressive.
Yeah, he needs to be super aggressive. I think we're all kind of on the same wavelength there. Like, for me, it's like what I said. I think that Moreno just needs to play it careful in rounds 1, maybe a little bit in round 2. His jab really surprised me in the first 2 fights. I think he does have a real long jab, and that surprised Figueiredo as well. But I think I'm interested, and I would be curious to see if Moreno will be looking to initiate grappling and scrambles and trying to make Figueiredo work. That's what you have to do, I think, to try and tire him out, take away that explosiveness, and that might be the route to victory for him in this fight. We'll go to Miles first. What do you think? How do you think this fight will play out, Miles? What's your prediction?
I think, I probably go with decision Moreno. I think decision Moreno. I think it'll probably go the full fight, to be honest with you. Yeah. There's a lot on the line, and I think that it'll be a hard, tough fight, and I think it'll be an exciting fight. And it mightn't be as easy for Moreno as the second fight, I feel, but it'll probably go to decision, and it'll be pretty, one-sided as well,
Brad?
I'm going to say within the first 3 rounds, Moreno.
Harry?
I think 3 or 4 Moreno sub.
Sean?
3 or 4 Moreno sub as well.
Sean Sheehan is scratched his head, so I'll give him the last word. I'm gonna go with Moreno in the championship rounds as well, and Sean is shaking his head in the middle there. I don't think he's going to be going.
Someone pulled this video up fucking Sunday morning. Round 2 submission, Deiveson Figueiredo. Fuck the laddie. He's winning it. Moreno had no fucking hope. Figueiredo. And I'm only saying that because I've already made my fucking betting show video. I can't go back on it. I'm sticking with it.
I think Figueiredo is 8-1 for submission there.
8-1 submission. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Right, we'll move on down the card, and we'll move on to the next fight, a welterweight fight between Miguel Pereira against Andre Filho. I'm really excited for this fight. These 2 boys are explosive. They've got knockout power. Pereira could fucking somersault, backflip in the cage at times. He's just a lunatic in there. This is just a real mid-pay-per-view card banger, and I can't wait to see it. Maybe I'll go to Harry first and see what your thoughts are on this fight.
Yeah, I think you've echoed those statements pretty much. I mean, Michel Pereira is just must-see TV, and Andre Filho seems to be the same. I think my only my only thought is in the last couple of performances, Michel Pereira's just dialed it back a little bit, right? He's been a little bit more conservative. He's contained that gas tank a little bit more. He's contained that crazy a little bit more. But I wonder whether Filio can bring that out of him, right? I wonder whether we're going to see a dogfight, whether we're going to see a capoeira-esque actual violence, right? I'm not sure. I do think you're right that it's a banger in the middle of the card, and I'm excited for both guys. But I feel as though Pereira's experience should lend him. Spencer Kite, big up Spencer Kite, big up Spencer Kite. That's thrown me off completely. Yeah, I do think Pereira's experience and his change of style, his more calm, collected style with that dialed down violence is probably going to take things here.
Brad, do you think we're going to see some madness from Pereira in this fight, or do you think that like Filio is coming in here 3-4 knockouts in these last 4 fights? He's carrying big power. Not a fella you want to be somersaulting or doing fucking handstands or anything in front of, I don't think.
Well, I don't know, you know, like Pereira is going to maybe want to prove a point here because this is a guy who's coming in from outside the UFC. You know, it's his first time on the big show, and I think Pereira's maybe going to try and make an example of this guy. Whether that's going to work against Filio is a different matter altogether, because as we've seen from Filio, this guy is a banger himself. He can be reckless, he can be exciting. I think this is going to be one of those great fights where technical ability and precision and all that good stuff goes out the door, and these guys are going to just start windmilling. And I'm all for it. I think it's the perfect third from the top pay-per-view bout, like the aperitif, if you will, before the main course of the 2 main events. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'll be honest, I don't care who wins. I just want to see some lunacy. I want to see Pereira do like a double backflip, somersault head stomp. I feel catch him with a flying knee on the way in. That'll make me happy.
Lovely. Sean, I know that you've looked at Filio, and a lot of people might not be familiar with him. He's making his UFC debut. I know you've watched some tape on him. You've seen him fight. You're pretty excited to see him getting in there, aren't you?
Yeah, this is the only lad I know anything about in the undercard, so don't ask me about any rest of them. But yeah, I went to watch a couple of his fights. He's a banger. Like I put out that video of him getting a knockout in I think it was UAE Warriors yesterday, and it was fucking elbowed a lad who had him pressed against the cage, and then knocked him down with that, then knocked him out on his way down, and then gave him a coffin nail when he got onto the ground. This guy's fucking vicious, and he's a striker as well. If anyone goes and watches him, he fights the exact same as Conor McGregor. He moves the exact same way as him. He's an orthodox fighter, and McGregor's a southpaw. But if you take that away for a second, he moves the same way. He throws the same like fake jab, and he just reminds me of him so much. And that would actually lead, I think, a lot to it being a good matchup for Mikel Pereira. Because if he's going to stand with him, if he's going to throw a straight shot to him and come in and throw fakes, Mikel Pereira will bite on them. I've predicted that he'll win by fucking cartwheel kick or rolling thunder or something like that. And I could see it. I think it's going to be one of those fights. I pray anyway. I hope that we get the real Mikel Pereira back, and I think we will, because they've been putting him like the fucking UFC, putting him in there with wrestlers, and like fuck off. He's like the most exciting fighter in the world, and you're putting him in there with a lad who's going to take him down for 3 rounds. You go and fuck off. Like that. That's not what we have this time. Now your man will go in and he'll go full fucking Khabib on him, and we'll have 3, it'll be 30-27 and be boring as shit. But hopefully it's a fun fight, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it should be a good fight. I'm curious to see what the size difference is here. Pereira is a huge welterweight, I think, and I think he cuts a lot to get down there. So I'll be interested to see those guys shape up. Do you have any thoughts on this fight, Miles, before we move on to the rest of the card?
I know Filio because he used to train in AKA. I think one of his posters up on the wall there as well. He used to train quite a lot with the guys, and from what I've heard, he's a good wrestler too. Like, and it seems to me
fucking ruin my fun fight. He's a wrestler. No,
sorry, Sean. Sorry for breaking your balls. Oh, sure, that's the way. So I hope it doesn't turn out like that. I'm sure Filio understands the entertainment business that comes along with the UFC as well, and he's probably going to try and get in there and and have a bit of a banger as well, because obviously that fight's put together for that reason too, like, I'm sure. So Pereira is like super exciting, isn't he? Like, you just don't know what he's going to do. So hopefully it turns out like that. But I mean, he's in a good gym now, Filio, isn't he? Like, I mean, Stanford MMA are really kind of the hot gym at the moment, aren't they? They have a lot of great fighters, Ian, Gary, and obviously all the other top UFC guys, and they're in every promotion now, really, aren't they? So I'm sure he's made huge improvements, and he obviously has, coming off a four fight winning streak. So I think he could take the fight, to be honest. I think he'll probably strike a bit, and then unfortunately, Sean, I think he might grapple a little bit too.
Sean's heart will be broken at 4 o'clock in the morning if Filio
I'll be
shoots for a
asleep.
takedown.
I gotta miss the top 2 fights. I'll be snoozing.
We'll move it along, lads. We'll go down a little bit, and we'll talk a small bit about Cody Stamann against Said Nurmagomedov. Stamann is coming in here. He has lost his last 2 fights. Nurmagomedov coming in off a win. Sean Denny, how do you think this fight is going to go down? I mean, this is a real fight that Stamann has to win. He can't really afford to drop 3, and he has a tough challenge ahead of him in Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, he's been a lad who's been through a lot. He's had now about 6-7 months off. So I think we're probably going to see him back to his best. He's very gritty. He'll try and sort of make a mess of this fight, but I think this is a very good litmus test for Nurmagomedov. He's going to try and keep a standing. He's a Nurmagomedov that strikes, which is dangerous. He does have grappling, but he loves the hands, and he's very good at using them. He's very good at his combinations. So if Stamann is to get that win that he desperately needs, he's going to need to take it down, which is crazy to say when you're facing a Nurmagomedov. I think Said is going to have just too many ways to beat Stamann, and it's going to be a difficult one unless Stamann, if he fails to make it messy, I think it's going to be over within the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, obviously Stamann went in and lost against Jimmy Rivera and also against Marib Dilashvili as well. Two good guys, but I tend to agree with you. Nurmagomedov has the speed advantage in the striking department, and I think that, I've kind of picked Stamann, and I'm kind of raging that I did now. I'm kind of changing my own mind as this conversation is going on.
Those kicks to the body from Nurmagomedov are unbelievable. Like, you see, it's funny, Sean said there, he's Nurmagomedov, you expect him to wrestle. Like, Usman Nurmagomedov is a bit, like, he can strike as well. A lot of the, a few lads going around there, they're not, you think about Habib and you just think wrestling, but no, they can fucking strike as well. And he's a way better, he can grapple as well, but he's a way better striker than he's shown his grappling so far. Like that body kick he knocked out, was it Ricardo Hamas with the spinning back kick to the liver? That was unbelievable. So he's really good. Like, Stem, I watched a couple of his fights yesterday. He like the way he goes forward, he cannot help but put himself in a situation where he's going to get hit, because he's so small and squat and his arms are so short that he kind of you have to bull your way forward. And like, he's not Mike Tyson now or anything like that. And if he meets someone who's a very good striker like Nurmagomedov is, I think it's going to be problems. But he has ways to win. Yeah, as Sean did said there, if he gets a few takedowns, he can win. If he lands the shots inside and he lands more shots, he lands hurtful shots, and he can take Nurmagomedov shots and he doesn't land that big knockout blow, I could see him winning the fight. I don't think it's a blow-up by any means, but it's a massive test for Nurmagomedov, I think. But I believe in his ability. I think he can win it.
All right, we'll move on to the last fight on the main card, and we'll just cover this real quickly. And I'll go to you, Harry. Rodolfo Vieira, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu phenom. He is taking on Wellington Turman, a fellow Brazilian. Vieira kind of had, it was on the wrong end of maybe his submission of the year nomination last year. He got submitted by Anthony Fluffy Hernandez in the second round, just completely gassed out. Got himself back into the win column in his last fight. How do you see this fight going, Harry?
I feel like it's a little bit of a gimme fight for Rodolfo Vieira, if I'm honest. Like, if you have a split decision against Sam Alvey, lads, what are we doing? Do you know what I mean? What are we doing? And I think, Bruno Silva is also a decorated black belt, right? Not to the level of Rodolfo Vieira, but he is a decorated black belt. And we saw what happened in there. And I think Rodolfo Vieira, look, if Rodolfo Vieira gets anywhere near a double leg, this is done. Do you know what I mean? We saw against Fluffy Hernandez that Rodolfo Vieira obviously gassed and whatever else, but Wellington Turman's takedown defense hasn't been fantastic, and I think if Rodolfo Vieira can push him against the cage and look for a double leg, we're going to see that Rodolfo Vieira top pressure, and it's either an arm triangle or he's going to give his back. Generally, I think that's how this fight goes. I think Rodolfo needs a win, and the UFC have set him up to take one.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and the nods of everybody's heads makes me think everybody else thinks like that too. Look, the undercard. Oh, Sean, do you have anything else to say?
I was just going to say earlier that jiu-jitsu doesn't work, so you probably won't win.
Look, we'll talk briefly about the undercard. The person that I want to talk about most that's on the undercard is the Georgian sensation, Ilia Topuria. I think he is an absolutely phenomenal fighter, and I cannot wait to see him fight. He had a fight with Ivalov fall out, which that was a fight I was really looking forward to seeing. And I'm glad that Charles Jourdain came in, and the man has balls of steel to come in against a guy like Ilia Topuria, undefeated so far. Brad, what is your opinion on Topuria? Do you think that he can make a real wave in the 145-pound division this year?
I have a huge opinion of Ilia Topuria. A number of years ago, he was booked on Cage Warriors to fight Brandon Moreno for the Cage Warriors title. He missed weight, I believe, by a couple of pounds. So the title fight was called off. But he came out and he submitted Bouland. I think he anaconded him in like 2 minutes. And Brandon Bouland is a high-level guy, and he's not a guy that you catch easily with a submission like that. And, you know, it's a cliche, but there are levels to this game. And I could see watching Ilia Topuria in that fight that he was operating at that UFC level already, you know, at that elite high level already. And I think since he's been in the UFC, he's only gone on to demonstrate that even more. He's not been as active as maybe we'd like him to be. I believe he's only fought once last year, a couple of times the year before that. But the wins he's got have been fantastic. You know, the Ryan Hall victory was huge. The way he was able to,
heartbreaker that was. Jesus.
You know, the way he was able to navigate those leg locks and remove himself from those positions and coffin nail the dude on the ground in that guy's, you know, that guy's own position that he favors was absolutely phenomenal. But look, big up Jourdain, right? You know, he's coming off a career best win against Ciryl. He's beat Doo Ho Choi, and I believe he's said in interviews that he doesn't think Topuria has the power of Doo Ho Choi, and he thinks if he's taken Choi's biggest shots, he can take Topuria's. So it's going to be very interesting how many risks Jourdain takes in this fight. And I think that's going to be the key thing for me. If Jourdain's willing to take the risks, is Topuria going to capitalize on them? I think he will. I think it's going to be a really dramatic win for Topuria. And I think this will be the win that elevates into that next level.
100%. Sean, what are your thoughts on Topuria as a kind of a prospect coming into the 145-pound division? This is a chance for him to maybe propel himself up into the top 15 maybe. I know he's not fighting a top 15 guy, but with a really impressive win here, he's definitely going to seal a big fight for him next.
I think he's one of the top prospects in the world, to be honest. Like we were talking about Sean Brady on the podcast that came out today. And, you know, he's one of those guys that kind of came in under the radar too. And because there's other lads, maybe like, you know, Hamzat, everyone's talking about him at 170. Sean Brady has done more impressive stuff than him. And no one seems to be talking. I feel like Topuria is a little bit the same. No, okay, he hasn't reached that level yet. He hasn't reached the level of wins that someone like a Brady has. But I feel like with this one, with one or two more, he will be in that discussion, but I don't think he's going to be in that discussion as well. With 145 pounds, you know, Frank Yeager will probably get a title shot or something like that, so he'll be on the sidelines for the next fucking 2 years, like always is the case at 145 pounds. But he's brilliant. Like, he can do it all. As Brad said there, on the ground, he has submission wins. He hits really hard. It's interesting to see Jourdain, who's never been knocked out, said he can't knock me out. Well, I think Topuria is the type of lad who'll say, well, can't I? And we'll see what happens on Saturday night. But yeah, I fancy Topuria to get the finish. I really rate him an awful lot, but as all the lads have said so far, fair play to Jourdain for taking it on short notice. But I think it might be a bit of a fool's errand.
Yeah, what we've seen lately from Topuria is that viciousness on the feet, but he also has 7 submission wins to his name as well. So he has the option of both taking guys down, getting them out there by submission, and or maybe opening up that submission with his powerful strike. So we saw that certainly against Ryan Hall. And just wondering, do you have any thoughts on Topuria, Miles?
The only time I actually saw him fight was against Ryan Hall. So it was only when you mentioned it there, I was like, oh, it's that guy. Yeah, because that was really impressive. I thought that was a very impressive fight, because Ryan Hall is just the worst person to fight. I'd hate to fight Ryan Hall. I'd just be like circling like a motherfucker trying to get away from him. I just wouldn't be anywhere near the legs. So for him to be, it was almost like perfect how he did it. You know, he let him kind of like, he lured him into feeling like he was coming into the game, and he just like coffined him, as he said. Well, there, guys, I feel like that he is super impressive, and I'm definitely going to be Googling him after this tonight. So
yeah, you're definitely in for a treat. He's a real good prospect. Harry, I get your thoughts on Topuria.
Fuck Topuria. Fucking battering my guy Ryan Hall. No, look, I mean, you know, we've all been excited about him for a long time, right? And I think to everyone's point, Miles says it perfectly. The Ryan Hall style is so awkward and so dangerous, and we saw that against Derek Minner, right? If you allow Ryan to play anywhere near his game, he just wins. It's just so hard to beat him anywhere in his game. And Topuria was happy to go into the fire and just outfire him. And I thought that's fantastic. That's a huge statement. I know Topuria in the lead up to the Ryan Hall fight said he wanted to submit him. You know, these things are going to be extremely difficult. But the fact that he went in there speaks volumes about his character. And, you know, we've already said all the plaudits about Charles Jourdain, but I think this is Topuria's fight to lose. I really, really do. And if he wins this in a good fashion, we're off to the races, lads. We really are.
Yeah, I have to agree. Would you agree with that, John Denny?
I would agree. There's actually a lot of similarities between Ireland and Georgia in populations and sort of stuff like that. So they're actually a good case study for what we could do with sort of similar numbers. But like, they are in the Caucasus region, so they do a lot of wrestling, a lot of judo, along with their striking. So they're usually very well rounded. Topuria, great. I think he's a black belt in BJJ. He's very good at getting it to the ground, but his striking is unbelievable. There's nothing this good. I think Topuria is the guy they hoped Giga Chikadze would be. So I think he's going to be the guy to go up in that division and rattle some cages.
We might see some Georgian on Georgian crime there later on, maybe in the featherweight division with Giga where he is, and Ilia Topuria coming up. That would be a pretty good fight to see it. I'm going to open up the floor, lads, to the rest of the card. Does anybody have anything to say about the rest of this card, or anybody that they're looking forward to seeing fight on the undercard?
I'm always happy to watch Kay Hansen fight. Always happy to watch Kay Hansen fight. So it'd be if that is the curtain jerker, that's a nice curtain jerker. Fuck Tony Gravely though. Fuck that.
Anybody else?
I think it's one of these cards, right, where there isn't that many standout names, or even apart from Topuria and Nurmagomedov, maybe, who are going to be higher up in the card. There isn't really that many standout names where if you have to miss the first 4 or 5 prelim fights, you're not going to be too bothered. But I actually think they're actually going to be good fights. Like, looking through them all this week and looking at, you know, just some of the fighters and some of the matchups, I actually think we're going to have a really, really good card here. And that's not always the case with the undercards in the big ones. But I do think this one, even, like I know we mentioned earlier, but Fila Pereira, if there isn't that takedown in it, maybe, and even maybe if there still is, it'll be good. I think the Nurmagomedov Stamen fight's going to be really good. Honey Barsolas is always good. Topuria, the Turman Figueroa fight is a very interesting fight, because can he get him down? Can he submit him? If he can, it could be over very, very quickly, or else it's going to be possibly a Ryan Hall fight where he's doing nothing but like going for legs and trying to pull him down and trying to stay out of everything else. Them fights, I love those fights, because sometimes we can get like 15-minute kickboxing matches over and over and over, and when you get something like that, it's a little bit different. So I think this card has a lot going for it, to be honest. And I'm interested to see I know your boy Tony Gravely as well, Ian.
That's why
he's on this card.
I was going to mention that too. To your point, not that many names. Like Carl just mentioned, there's 9 fighters out of Wikipedia page. There's 8 fighters making their debut on the card. Tony Gravely is fighting on the headliner on the UFC Fight Pass. You know, he was very unlucky against Nate Maness in the last fight. It was just a couple of seconds. It was just a couple of seconds left in the first round when he hurt Manus, and that fight could have been over if it was maybe 10 or 15 seconds longer. He got clipped in the second round. I've had Tony on. He's a real good prospect coming out of ATT as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing him trying to get back into the win column. And we rounded up pretty much at that. It's a pretty good card overall. I want to ask Miles maybe a couple of questions before we head off. You know, Miles, you signed up with the PFL. You made the announcement late last year, and congratulations on that. What's the story? What division are you going to be going into the PFL, and how do you see the 2022 working out for you? Has there been any talks about opponents or what your schedule may be going in there?
Well, a student did a graphic for me there on Instagram, me against Pettis. I'd love to fight Anthony Pettis. I think that would be a great fight. So hopefully, I tagged him in it and all. So hopefully he just says, yeah, I'll fight the Irish lad. Fuck it. So that'd be great.
That would be great.
I'm definitely going to be going in at lightweight anyway. So my weight's good and training's going well. Obviously, I've been off for a long time, so I'm sparring a lot, It's a tricky situation. I'd like to go over to AKA to train, but I just can't with the situation here at my gym at home. So I was talking to my manager, and he's letting me know about what date I'm going to be competing at in the season in April. It's starting in April anyway. I'm definitely fighting in that month, and I'll probably be going over there to train as well. You probably have heard of UFD gym. If you heard about that gym in Germany, it has a lot of guys there, so I'll probably go over there and compete, and I'm looking forward to getting onto PFL. They're a great promotion. They seem to be on the up, really. So yeah, it's exciting stuff, and hopefully it's Pettis. That'd be great.
Are you going to be going into the tournament, or is it what way are you going to be doing it?
I think I'm going into the tournament. I'm pretty sure that I'm going straight into the tournament. So that's fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
One of my bold predictions for the year was an Irish PFL champion. So you better do it for me now.
Yeah, that's it. Well, first round's on me when I win that millie, so that'd be good.
We'll keep you to that.
We'll all have to travel to Kilkenny there to fucking get it.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, the only thing is I can't wear the Kilkenny shorts, so that's a bit of a bummer for sure. Look.
That's it.
I'll bring my Limerick jersey with me. It'll be fine.
Sure,
no need, Sean. It's all right.
you won't be let down into Kilkenny wearing that jersey, Sean. I'll tell you that. Miles, we wish you the best, obviously, going in there. It's great to see somebody representing Ireland, and I'm delighted to see someone from Kilkenny representing Ireland and on the big stage with PFL as well. Obviously, when things materialise more, a little bit closer to April, we'll have you on. We'll have another chat about it, and we'll probably know more things there. But I know I can wish you the best of luck, and delighted to see you get the chance with PFL, and I'm sure you'll do some great things over there. I want to thank the rest of the lads for joining me tonight to talk about the fight. Thanks to you, Miles, for taking the time to talk to me tonight as well, and talk to the rest of us about the UFC 270s this Saturday night. Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane, the Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. If you enjoyed what you heard tonight, we'll be doing one pretty much every UFC event. We'll be going on, we'll be chatting a little bit of shit about every card, the good cards, the bad cards, the medium cards. We're going to hop on every week. Go and follow Sean Sheehan at Sean Sheehan Ba, at Denny Rants, at BJJ _ Powell, at I'm after forgetting your one, Brad. Go for it.
I forgot as well. I think it's Brad. I think it's
Brad 4 or something.
MMA Brad 4. MMA Brad 48. Yeah.
48.
There we go.
And Miles, where can everybody find you on social media?
Instagram is probably best. Miles Price MMA. Yeah.
Perfect. Go and follow the lads. Thanks to everyone for listening tonight, for sending in questions and comments. We'll see you the next time.
Thanks for having us.